I think that before any university plans a new library, they really have to think about several things. And one of the most important things is the role of the library within the university. And I think that there needs to be a lot of discussion about that amongst the faculty and amongst the administration, and with contributions perhaps from the students as well. What role do they want the library to play within the university? And another thing that is very important, just as an overview, is thinking about the changing information methods of students, the different ways today that students seek information for their assignments, and just the different way that they seek information in their everyday lives. And another really key thing, I think, in when one is thinking about planning a new library is the changing formats of information today. Books are changing, and I think that the paper book will always be with us. I hope it will. I'm a big fan of paper books, but I think that we have to acknowledge the role of electronic books and also electronic journals today, and I think that that's key. And I think underpinning all of my thoughts on designing a new university library today is the way that one approaches the process. And I think today we need to design a library for the learning of the students and the research of the faculty, not for the processes of the library. And I'm not saying that, and I'm a librarian. I was a librarian for many years before I became a professor. So I am not saying that one says, oh, forget what happens in the library. The processes of the library are not important. No, I'm not saying that. But I am saying that when one starts the process of designing the library, that you need to think first of the learning of how do students learn and how do faculty members do research, and have that drive the process and the thinking about the library, rather than saying these are the processes that the library does and design the library for the processes of the library. That's not the way that libraries today should be designed, I don't think. I think that all over the world, the roles of the librarians are changing as well. No longer are the librarians consumed by just the library processes. The librarians are also contributing to the learning of the students, and therefore the librarians are working with the students in the classrooms. They are teaching the classes with the professors on how to find information. This information age, everybody thinks, oh, just look it up on Google. It is so easy. It is not easy. It is very complicated today to find information, particularly the information that students need to write good papers, to do good assignments, and to find that information on the web, to find it in the electronic resources is something that they need training in, and that's where the role of the librarian comes in, helping the students to navigate this new information age, and working with the architect to be able to see all the possibilities of this new information age as well. And we do not want to design a book museum. We want to, I think any new university library needs to be a learning center, not a book museum. And I think that the roles of the librarians contribute to that.
They contribute to the students and to the teachers,
yes,
to the faculty members.
Yes.
Very important role.
Yes, and I think that the faculty members it needs to be a collaboration for the learning of the students. And so the professors often invite the librarians into the class. So if the professor gives an assignment, and the professor wants the students to use the library resources, then the librarian comes into the classroom and gives a short tutorial on how to use that material. Or in a new university library, you have various technology labs. You have computer laboratories that can seat 25 to 30 students. So then the students come into the library and the librarian gives a tutorial on how to use those electronic resources. So it's a collaborative effort to navigate this information age, I think. Some of the things for a new university library, well, one of them that I think is a trend that started about 10 years ago but has been very successful. So I think it is no longer just a trend, it is something that is going to stay, and that is something within university libraries called the Learning Commons. The Learning Commons. And when you think of commons, it is a common area. It is an area where the students can gather and they can do assignments, they can work together. You have computers where the students can work around the computers. It is an open area, but you have a library staff member, a librarian there, going around helping the students with their assignments. It is also an area where you have a lot of electrical outlets, because the students come in, they have their laptops, they want to plug in, and so we have to accommodate the technological devices that the students have. Two of those learning commons that I'm familiar with are both in Canada, and one is at the University of British Columbia, where I used to work, and another one is at a university called Queen's in Ontario, and that is another very successful learning commons. And one of the things that came from the annual report from the Queen's University, and they're talking about their learning commons, which they said their objective in creating this open area within the university library was to create an accessible, collaborative place for students to work, study, and meet. And when you think about those words, what they wanted the students to be able to do, so that they created a variety of seating. They are soft seating, so students can lounge like students do when they are studying, reading. Computer stations, individual study areas, and group study areas. Their annual report said in this area, the students are motivated to study when they are close to others who are studying. Students like being able to find someone who is working on a similar project, and they like a communal atmosphere that is conducive to working and studying. And I think that those words are very descriptive of the new learning style of students, which, as someone who was first a student many, many years ago, that is not how I studied. The old way of studying is by yourself, absolutely quiet. That is not the way that students study today. That is not the way students learn today. Students all over the world, we see them earbuds in their ears, music going. They are reading while the music is in their ears. They are writing. They learn in a much more communal way. And I think that this learning commons is that is part of many new university libraries is part of it. It also, a learning commons needs to be a relaxing place, and where students are socially and intellectually connected to other students. And I think that that's key. And that there are academic support things around for them, writing centers, the librarians to help. It is much more of a commons, and I think that's important. I think that the very valuable books that all university libraries have, and that I know that the University of Pura does have some very valuable materials. I am not saying that those should be open, of course not. And the valuable materials in any university library are kept sequestered. They are kept for sign out, and because you can't afford to lose those. But for most books these days, and most university libraries, it is open access, open stacks. And I think with still perhaps some security in place, that can work very well. And so the students can browse the shelves the same way as they browse on Google and browse the shelves. I think that open stacks are important. One of the things that I think some university libraries have created different zones, and so it can be a book zone within the library. And for some of the books, particularly perhaps the most valuable ones that students do not have access to, I would recommend something called compact shelving, where you have the stacks come all close together and you can get 3 or 4 times as much material in a very small space. And I think we have to accept the fact that in probably 10 years, most of the books that the students will be using, particularly the undergraduate students, will be electronic. They will be e-books. They will probably always consult paper books, and particularly those books that have never been digitized and will not be digitized. And so of course those must be kept. But I think we have to be realistic and say, if the book is only going to be used once a year, maybe once every 2 or 3 years, or even twice a year, having it in open stacks is not worth it. It should be in the compact shelving. But I am very much a proponent of the books being used, and I think that the students need to have access to those books to use them, and very importantly, access to the information about the books. So being able to look at the online listing of the books, the online catalog, and have that very accessible is very important. An Indian scholar, a scholar from India, named Ranganathan, a very, very famous Indian scholar, one of the things he said is, books are for use. The worth of a book is in its use. And I know there are valuable books that probably, we don't use that much, but the worth of a book is in its use. And so that's why I would say open stacks are the way that the UDEP should go. When you start planning the new university library, you may have comments from faculty members and members of the public who say, a library? Why do you need a library now? All books are on the web. All people, if you have a question, you just look it up on Google. So that libraries are dead. But that's not true. well-planned public libraries and well-planned university libraries are well used. And so I think that the role that the university library is playing now is no longer the storage place for the books, but instead the portal to learning, the portal to knowledge. And it can only be that kind of portal if the library is the heart of the campus. And so I see as an image the library in the center of the campus, and all the paths in the university library, in the university grounds, all leading to the library, so that then the students then go into the library, and that is their portal to knowledge. And whether it is books or electronic or the advice that the librarians give, that is really what I see. And the other idea that you brought up about the battlefield, and one of my areas of research has to do with access to information, freedom of inquiry, and I think that the university is the best place for students to learn that there are conflicting ideas about various philosophies, and there may be, under the guidance of the faculty member, the students should learn about the various ideas that have fought against each other over the ages. And the image that I see is the books, one right beside one another on the shelf, and they fight it out because one book has one idea about history or philosophy or religion. It has one idea, the other book has a different idea, but the books are side by side on the shelf, and they can fight it out. Those ideas can fight it out peacefully, instead of fighting it out on a battlefield and us hitting each other about our conflicting ideas. I think that we need to promote the library as the place where those ideas fight it out on the shelves. I think a university library is a very controversial place, and I think that's a good thing. I think that we should not have university libraries that are boring, and because the ideas within the databases and within the books, as the students sit down in front of the computer terminal, one student is looking at one idea on one computer terminal, another student is looking at another idea. Those ideas may be opposing. This is exciting. This is where students should learn to debate in a civilized, ethical manner. They should learn that those ideas can be conflicting, but we do not need to be abusive as we are discussing these ideas. So if the ideas within the library are exciting, should not the library building be exciting? So I think that a new university library should show that it is that portal to knowledge, and also that there are exciting, sometimes controversial ideas within that building. So if the building itself is slightly controversial, I think that's a good thing, because then people say, oh, this is a little different, this is a little strange, and I think that's good, because then both for faculty members and for students, they know that within the library they can find some of those ideas that might be new to them, the same way the building is new. Some ideas that may shock them a little, and they may say, oh, I'm not sure I believe that, but maybe I better think about that. A philosophy, a new idea in science, something that is different. So the building has to reflect that, and I think that's what makes new university libraries very exciting.